On this episode of Star Trek Universe, we are talking about the Lower Decks Season 3 finale, The Stars at Night. Right after these words from our mystery sponsors.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you get to listen in on two lifelong friends chat about Star Trek like they've been doing since they can remember. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Robertson.
Dave, how are you, my friend?
I'm okay. I'm a little bummed out because I really love cheese puffs.
Okay.
But ever since Trump, every time I try to eat them, I just keep thinking about Trump because of all the jokes about the Cheeto dust.
Yeah, Cheeto dust fingers. And
yeah. So
that is a tough one.
It's delicious, but I just keep thinking of Trump.
You know, we all have life struggles, and sometimes you just got to push through, man.
Yeah. The same thing happens with mashed potatoes. Because of that SNL bit where he's like, is that awful picture that the press keeps putting up of me, that awful, ugly picture? And then she goes, that's a plate of mashed potatoes.
So your life is consumed with Trump, as most of ours are these days. Yeah. Well, I join you in my dislike of that man. And I feel like most Star Trek fans are with us are on the same page on that. And if you're not, send us your angry letters so they will fuel us. My name is, let's talk about Lower Decks. How about that?
Did you almost say your name again?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
I like it though.
Yeah, it just felt like it was when you're starting the podcast. I don't know.
Yeah, this is your version of ooh-wee, what's up with that? You just never get to the thing. You just
seconds, yeah.
You just reintroduce yourself.
All right. Well, let's talk about Lower Decks, man.
Yeah.
So the finale, and man, I liked it. I thought it was a really solid finale, and we joked last week about this literal ending as a possibility. Actually, we joked about both of these possible endings, which was that the Texas class would make the Cali class obsolete, and that the Texas class would become sentient. And we joked about them tying up the Rutherford storyline, and they did all three.
Yeah, they did. I love it. The only thing was, like, I was sitting there, I was like, oh, we're looking at AI. Oh my gosh, are they gonna did he use code from some of those sentient AIs that they have in storage? But they went the Rutherford route with it.
That begins my speculation. Actually, talking about those AIs, we for those of you who didn't notice, there was a post-credit sequence, and I'm going to spoil it right now. The post-credit sequence was the ship, a piece of the ship of the Texas class ship being picked up. And
no.
Was that not what it was?
No, they went back to the Cala system from back in season 1 where Shax ripped off the original headset from Rutherford and threw it out or whatever before he got blown up. And that was because Rutherford mentions it earlier in the episode where he says, it was the same code he used to create Badgie. That's why when it starts picking up Rutherford's old headset from season 1, and Badgie is in there.
Okay. So, gotcha. So I guess I just saw the destruction and thought that was the battle they just did. And that since it was the same code as prior, that this was a piece of the ship, like maybe the computer console or whatever, and they were drawing it out, and since it was the same Badgie code, it was Badgie. Sorry, that was how they chose to represent it or whatever. But I guess you're probably right, because it doesn't. It did go mad. It had the same daddy issues, as they said.
Yeah.
But it didn't actually turn into Badgie, which I thought was a missed opportunity. I would have loved for these AIs to just straight up have been Badgie.
Yeah, and I do think that they're going to wind up doing some big AI arc with all the other.
Oh, yeah.
And they'll bring Badgie into that, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're right. And I think that's what happened at the end of this episode. I think that I was like, who is it picking them up? It was green, so you could think as Romulans or Borg, but my best guess is that it's the other two AIs that have joined forces Peanut Hamper, and I cannot remember.
Yeah,
Jeffrey
I can't remember
Combs.
his name. Jeffrey Combs. That's what. Let's just call him Jeffrey Combs. Agamus.
That's it.
Yeah.
So Peanut Hamper, Agamus, and Badgie. That is such a good like throuple right there.
Yeah, man.
I hope it's romantic. I hope they have a romantic AI throuple. And there's weird jealousy between them. I think that's how it sounds. It reminds me very much of like a weird comedy, Angel, Drusilla, and Spike. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I can see that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's where that's going. Just because the AI of it all, I think that's probably where that thing's heading now that it's been picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm down with it, though. I'm down with the sickness.
Me too, man.
Ooh,
And they really tied up a lot of stuff in this episode. It felt like a finale. They always surprise me with these big sweeping finales that they feel like there's a lot less jokes in them, but they don't feel any less fulfilling as an episode of Lower Decks. I think as much as I enjoy the jokes on this show, and they're always a pleasure to sit through, and the show would not be anything without them. I like it when they get serious and just like tell a good story.
Yeah. And, but I understand it's like half-hour format.
Yeah.
I did feel like some of this was a little rushed.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I will say this. They did way more stuff in this episode than what I would have expected in one episode. But the things that they cut that would have been in a more traditional 45-minute, sometimes it's really good cuts. Like, they'll say things like, for instance, they jump back and forth between the Admiral Buenamigo, which I don't know why I never caught it before, but his name is basically good friend in Spanish, which is Buenamigo, which I thought is funny, given that he turned out to be an evil admiral like all of them.
Yeah, all the admirals are evil.
I like that he gave a little bit of explanation for that. He's like, it's just so competitive. Once you become an admiral, there's nowhere to go.
Yep.
You have to differentiate yourself. And that like kind of gives their reason for all the admirals to be like driven a little mad and, be a little overzealous, let's say. Yeah.
I mean, when Kirk became an admiral, he just kept like hounding his way back into the center seat, like because he was being driven mad by boredom.
By boredom, but yeah, this is like a desire to be higher up or something by Buenamigo.
I was down with it. Like my biggest, point of contention was just that like the admirals were just like, we've decided to shutter the California class. They did that shit quick. Like without like a proper test run for the Texas class.
Yes, they did.
It was just like boom. And then like later on they're like, well, let's talk about this. Let's do a race. Like, okay.
Well, I will say that in the last episode they were already talking about how like their swing by was an attempt to try to make the Cali class ship make more sense. And so they were like, they were already trying to like justify their existence.
Which I was a little bit iffy on anyway, because I was kind of like, what is the difference between Project Swing By and the Second Contact exactly?
Yeah, for sure. Well, and they even say, I think the idea of Project Swing By is to go by, like to make them quick check-ins instead of like full-on missions. Because they even said like, they were going to do a couple of second contacts during this or whatever. So like, a second contact can be a swing by. I think the idea is just that it's like quicker. And I think they were just trying to give the Cali class something different they can do that's like a little quicker, a little more nimble, a little less important missions and like get them done quicker. I don't know. I guess that's what they were going for.
But what I really appreciated about this story though is that they made a point to have the fact that the AI ships, even if they weren't using the evil code, quote unquote, they were still like not doing the proper job. And Carol had enough to come to them, to Starfleet, and be like, hey man, this, it's not taking the proper precautions with the Prime Directive.
Yep.
So she had already won, and that made him show his hand between that and Rutherford. remembering where he saw that code. So, but I liked that, like, it just felt like a very Star Trek cherry on top.
Yeah, completely.
Even without evil plot, it's still not doing the job that us humanoids or sentient beings are doing.
Yeah. This entire project is rushed, is what the sense I got. Yeah. Like, it's not even that the drones couldn't have worked. They could have, like, taken the time to do that, but whoever's behind the programming, which is Buenamigo, was more concerned with winning the race than doing the full check of everything. So
right.
It just sort of proved his hand in two ways. Yeah, I liked that a lot too. It's just really good, tight episode. And yeah, what I was going to get at is during that race, like, I feel like in other Star Treks, you get like establishing shots that you don't get in this show, which makes it a lot zippier, and it can feel rushed for sure. But when I think about what they're cutting, a lot of times it's useless stuff. Like, instead of going back and them having, like, you know those moments in Star Trek where, like, it cuts to Geordi and he's, like, silently talking to a crewman, and then he, like, puts down the tricorder, and then he turns around and walks over. He's like, "Oh, Captain, you're here."
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. There were a few moments in this episode where they're cutting between the Cerritos and Buenamigo and what he's doing, talking to, like, give them a chance or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
Like all that stuff. And where in any other Star Trek, there would have been, like, a little 15-second establishing shot, but because this is Lower Decks and it's just like they just don't put as much weight on everything and everything has to be a little zippier, it was just like, you know, Captain Freeman talking immediately cuts to Buenamigo talking, immediately cuts back to, and it was like the same beats that would happen, but they're just happening faster, you know, and like less pomp and circumstance around each, like, scene change and setting and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Doesn't hold your hand as much, which I kind of like.
Right. Of course, I could have used, like, I know it's Lower Decks, but it's also supposed to be canon. So I could really use, like, maybe not, you know, a 15-second clip of Buenamigo laughing maniacally. Like, that wasn't even funny. It was kind of funny, but it was like
pretty funny.
It's just so weird.
I'm sorry.
Like,
if that's your line for what's too weird to be Star Trek, then Lower Decks is just not for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a small aberration when you compare it to so many other things in the show.
Yeah, no, but I feel like it was a particularly long cut that maybe some more time to something else could have been in there. Like, I really hate that in some ways, I hate that we didn't get more episodes with Mariner,
as an archaeologist,
as the archaeologist. Yeah, basically. Like, but at the same time, you know, the show is very, like, centered around the four of and maybe five with T'Lyn coming in now. I'm very excited about that.
Which I feel like the fans made that happen, right? Like, it doesn't feel like they did that on purpose, because last season they brought her over, or she got kicked off the Vulcan ship. They said she was going to go to work with humans, and then
not all of the aliens.
Every one of them
humans.
Every single one of them.
Andorians say pink skin.
So racist, Andorians.
It may have only been Shran.
Yeah.
Another great Jeffrey Combs.
Yep, I love Jeffrey Combs. So good.
I'd take a Shran series. Kurtzman, it's not too late.
Take a Shran series. Oh my gosh, I would take a Shran series. Like, after really early, just after the founding of the Federation or whatever.
Yeah. Now everybody wants, like, oh, let's do Star Trek Janeway. I'd be fine with that. But what I really want is Star Trek Shran.
Yeah, I know this is us showing our not loving Voyager cards again, but, like,
no, it's not because of that. I just love Jeffrey Combs so much more than most everything.
Yeah. No, I know. I'm just saying, like, to want a Shran series more than any of the captains shows, like, yeah, we have a great affection for Shran and just Jeffrey. Like, they should just do it. That's actually not a bad idea. You know how they talk about doing, like,
Combs Trek.
Yeah,
one episode of Shran, one episode anthology series.
Yeah, an anthology series with, like, just all the different Jeffrey Combs characters sprinkled in and like telling parts of the universe that we want explored more of, but it's always featuring Jeffrey Combs as a main cast member. It could almost be like, if you ever seen, or do you know anything about American Horror Story?
Yeah.
It's like they do a different thing each season, but it's always the same troupe of actors.
Right.
Or at least mostly, and they maintain a lot of the actors from season to season, but they'll play completely different characters. You get like the same thing from episode to episode. That way you like keep the show's budget normal. You know what I mean? Because it's the same group of actors, but each week they're like a different crew from a different one of Jeffrey Combs' lives.
Yeah. I want an episode that I just had this idea. It's like just have an episode called The First Wayun. And he's just like, he's older and he's like actually very anti-religious, and he doesn't put any kind of stock in the founders, and maybe he even like revolts against them. And as punishment, they basically tell him, you're going to be in service to us for the rest of time, and just keep cloning him.
Yeah.
To be subservient.
They clone him and like maybe they've already done it. And they've already raised him to be this like religious zealot, and they had introduced the new one to the old one, like like an insult. That's pretty. Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Yeah,
he's like the leader of the rebellion that's trying to keep. Was it what were they called, the Vorta? No, is that right?
Yeah.
Vorta.
Well, he was Vorta. Yeah.
The Dominion, but he's trying to keep. He was like the leader of the rebellion, trying to keep the Vorta out of the Dominion, and then they insult his memory by making him their servant forever. Yeah, it's pretty dark. And that's dark. I like it. You should write that up and send it to whoever that guy is you always mention.
Alex Kurtzman?
That's the guy.
The guy that's running the franchise right now?
Yeah, I don't pay attention to that.
Star Trek's Kevin Feige?
Yeah.
I love you, man, but you're an ass.
So true. So true. So yeah, this is a great episode of Lower Decks. Very good.
Yeah.
Mariner said she needed this. Talking about her going away from Starfleet and needing to get back, and like needing to save her friends, and needing to like realize how important all of this was to her and all that stuff. And I think also to gain her mother's respect, and for the crew to have seen how badly misconceived they had her personality, you know what I mean? They needed this to like be so wrong. I think that's really kind of neat that they like kicked her off of the ship, and then the entire ship's like, oh, we did that. We all treated her like an asshole, and it was our fault.
I love several things about that. Like one, I love that when she walked into the bar or whatever, Jennifer was sitting right there, and she just walked right by her. Yeah. So like they made sure to show us Jennifer, and so I'm really happy with that, because it just says to me she is now moving past her, and that's not going to be like a real thing anymore. I loved that Rutherford made hung the lantern and said, we should have been more supportive. Yeah, because that was one of my biggest problems with the last episode, and they're at least hanging the lantern.
We didn't even remember that there had been a moment. Now, going back and listening to them talk about this episode, I remembered how important that moment was, though, because that moment she goes to her friends and she says, "Oh, goodbyes are bad," da da da, and she says. But what I didn't realize had happened in that moment is that moment was the moment that Boimler agreed with everyone, right? Doesn't he say something? And she calls him, or he apologized for it this episode. He's like,
he counsels her to just apologize for whatever it was they thought that she did.
Oh, I thought it was for whatever she did. Isn't that what he apologized this episode?
I don't remember.
Yeah, because this episode he tells her like, I'm sorry, I thought you did it. So even he thought she did it, which is really insulting. So it really puts a lot more weight behind her, like grabbing her things and being like, I don't really feel like talking to you guys right now. Like, because you want me here and you don't think less of me, but like you still don't see the growth that I've had.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally just kind of missed that last episode. And this episode drove it home, which I love. I love this episode. Really did like we both were really, I think, the most down on last episode of all of the episodes this season.
Mm-hmm.
We were both like, eh. And I think it was because it was the first half of this episode, it was the first half of a two-parter, really, because everything in this episode was tied to the last episode.
Yep. I'll agree with that. Man, there's so much I want to talk about. But okay, let's keep it where we are. Were you satisfied with the way she and her mom kind of came together? Because I really liked the fact that she was like, well, I mean, I've spent most of my life making you feel like bringing you to that point.
I did. Yeah, I liked it a lot. It was a lot. There was so much grace in Mariner in this episode. And that's not a trait we know her for. And just being like, I forgive you guys. Yeah. And Boimler, it's very similar to the way she reacts to Boimler. Boimler's like, is this the kind of you're okay that I'm going to be punished for it later? Because I'm willing to apologize a lot.
Yeah.
And she's like, nah, man, I just missed you guys.
Yeah. And speaking of Boimler, though he didn't say bold Boimler, he did just scream at everybody and just tell them to shut up and listen to Shax, which was very bold. I love that these characters are actually growing. Yeah, for sure. And he I love that he because of his bold Boimler stuff, which he, like you said, he didn't say it, but it is very much the way he's been learning to act a little bit more. He took that step. He actually finally got his bridge buddy, that he's been yearning for the whole season. I'm over here laughing because of freaking Rutherford going, "Oh, bears!
Oh, bears! Baby bear, you're in the bear pack now." But what I loved about that was that it was not him sucking up that got him the thing. It was actually him thinking about his life and being like, I need to be more bold. That's a thing that I want for myself. This is not something I'm going to do in front of the bridge crew to look better. This is a thing that I want to do for me.
Oh, also, I love that she didn't burn the bridge with Petra. They didn't make Petra out to be some great evil. They kind of hinted at it, but then they were like, oh, it was Admiral Picard the whole time.
Yeah, I loved that. It was not, she was suspicious, of course. And she said she thought she kind of made that decision to do that snooping because part of her just wants to go back to the Federation. It's so much growth in Mariner and Boimler. It's great. I really love this show. For a sort of 2D comedy whatever, I think it's one of the better overarching stories.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Favorite line of the entire episode? They robbed me of my memories and it was used to cover up crimes, deadly crimes. But it's so cool!
Yes, it's exactly right. That is a full-on recap of how his internal struggle happened in that previous episode. It's all that darkness around it. But it's so cool!
And that's just so Rutherford.
Yep. So good. And I don't know why I feel like maybe the flashback didn't make a lot of sense because when Rutherford had the flashback, how much younger did Buenamigo look?
Yeah, he looked a little young.
He looked 20 years younger, and I was like, how old is Rutherford?
Hey, being an admiral in Starfleet is like being the president. It just ages you.
Very stressful.
Plus, he's smoking a cigar. So
that's true.
I don't know if they still have. I don't know if it still does that in the future.
Yeah, it's probably a synthagar or something.
Love this line. I laughed way too hard at this. I can't work in an outpost. I won't look good in a drab olive vest.
Yeah, it was great. It was really wonderful.
I love that the show actually just jabs at previous costume designs and stuff in Star Trek. I stopped being impressed with the thing stealing our jobs was fantastic. I loved that. Of course, I will burn. What's the catchphrase of the Texas class kept saying? I will burn your heart out or something like that. Yeah, something like that. Which I think Badgie said that.
Okay. Yeah, I think so, but it's been so long, I can't remember that Badgie episode very well.
Speaking of jabbing at previous designs, I love the jab at Star Trek always reusing things that look like something they've already shown us because they're just reusing the prop. Where he says, "Toss me the scanner that looks like a face discriminator."
That's great. I didn't catch that one.
Yeah,
that's great.
Oh, and Rutherford, a starship can't have daddy issues.
Yep.
There were a lot of really great laugh lines in this episode.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It was zippy, man. It's a zippy episode, and it had like real stakes. I think the comedy works even better when it's in the context of this kind of stuff. We've talked about it many times. The just pure silly episodes don't really get me, but when it's in the context of a good story, I like it a lot. Did
you like the one little bit from Miglimo, whatever?
What did he
from Paul F. Tompkins?
What did he say?
Tandy, that's cantaloupe talk. I want you to be a cantaloupe.
I liked it. I did. Because it's such nonsense. It's just absolute nonsense. And it's like, it's exactly the kind of like complete nonsense self-help stuff that someone would think of that isn't very good at that. I really love it.
It's great.
Yeah, I was mentioning earlier, but I really think the arrival of the Vulcan officer is probably due to the fans. Like, because it seems like if they were going to do that last season, if that was like a thing that was going to happen, it would have happened earlier in this season. But because it's like tacked on at the very end, it feels like they heard the fan outcry, like, "Oh, we bet she's coming to the ship." And they were like, "Well, we've already written all the episodes. Like, no, she's not." And then they were like, "But it's a good idea." Like, that's how it feels to me. I don't know if that's right, but how it feels.
I would love to pick Mike McMahon's brain because, like, I don't know. Because it definitely felt like they were leading up to her being there. But, one, I don't think it would make sense for her to be an instant right away. So maybe she did like a quick tour or something and then left and then came back. I don't know. But
right.
A lot of these episodes this season wouldn't have had much for her to do anyway, like because they really were focusing on these guys being a family. So I would love to know the truth behind that because it does feel weird.
Yeah, well, I'm wondering too if it might have been and I doubt this is why because they could have easily done it and just pretended there was little bit of a time jump between episodes or whatever, but was she part of the Vulcan whatever the Vulcan fleet, I guess.
Yeah,
so it's possible there's like a Starfleet like crossover course if you're already in another fleet.
Equivalency.
Yeah, like you've already got 80% of your space training. Now you just got to come over and do this like crossover course and then you're certified Starfleet officer,
Yeah. I do have questions about how quickly every California class was able to get there.
Oh yeah, that was stupid. I meant to mention that.
That was really stupid.
that seems dumb.
It was gorgeous. Great fight sequence.
Oh yeah.
And also, I mean, to be fair, I do want to be fair. It is as stupid as the Enterprise always being the only ship that's within range of some, even when they're at Earth, you're just like, what the hell are y'all talking about? You're at Earth.
That's true. When it's at Earth, that's really dumb. But when it's out in space, that does make sense. That because we're following that ship. Of course, they're going to be the closest thing to the thing we're following. But
yeah.
In this, it just like I got to imagine the Cali class. Like they talked about the Titan because we've seen them interact with the Titan a lot. I'm assuming the Cali. I keep calling it the Cali, but the Cerritos.
That's what they called it. Who cares?
Well, the Cali class. Sorry, I'm talking about the Cerritos specifically. The Cerritos has been seen to be, I don't know, working in the same area of space as the Titan, possibly, which is why it seems like it would make sense that they first said, "Hey, can we contact the Titan?" But then they called all the Cali class, which just, it just doesn't. It seems like the Cali classes would be spread over the entire, quadrant or even all 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They're all close enough to get there during a battle.
But I was so distracted by that final California class crew that they showed us, which was basically like a bug version of Boimler and Mariner, and like a male version of Carol she had like a goatee, and I don't even like. It was weird. I was like, "What is that about?"
Yeah, and we saw the all Bolian crew again.
I was fine with that. I was just like, "What was the other thing? What was this? These bug people?"
Yeah, it's very strange. It felt like a weird like. Did that happen in an episode I don't remember? That's like where my mind went when I saw the bug Boimler. I'm like, wait, I know about the, I know about William Boimler. I don't know about Bug Boimler. What happened here?
Yeah. Was it just like some sort of strange dimensional rift version of the
Cerritos?
Yeah. I want to know. What
I think it was just supposed to be a visual gag, but it definitely was funny and weird. You know what? Speaking of Boimler, I got to give a shout out to old Huey over there.
Okay.
What's his name? What's the actor's name who plays Boimler?
Jack Quaid.
Thank you. Jack Quaid.
He plays Huey on The Boys.
Yeah, which is why I said old Huey over there.
I'm telling the listeners. I know you know.
Oh.
That's why you said it.
Oh,
Remember, we have people listening.
Nope, I forgot completely.
Yeah, we don't really have that many. It's really just Stu Little. It's just Stu.
That's just you. So I don't know. The other few hundred people downloading might also be you.
I am not Stu.
Your entire life is just you make this podcast and then you go into different versions of yourself and listen to this podcast, but only one other version of you is willing to communicate with yourself.
And that is sadly now our ongoing story.
Yep. It's added to the canon.
It's not true. Everyone's going to think I'm anyway.
Well, yeah, I think Jack Quaid is really killing it. I have always thought so, but I think in earlier seasons I thought he just kind of sounded like himself a little more. But I think this episode, when he did the multiple voices of the different characters, like Boimler doing Shax, Boimler doing Dr. Tahana, like all that stuff, like it really worked for me. And I was like, wow, he's a good voice actor. And then I kind of just started paying attention to his voice acting a little more. And like, he is not sounding to me like Jack Quaid anymore. Like he is, I can still tell it's him under there or whatever, but he is like pitched up a good bit, and he is really playing that character as a very, very different character than Huey or whatever. And maybe part of that is I've seen Huey over the last few seasons go sort of darker in The Boys. And so like, it's almost like they've diverged in two different directions. And it's like, I'm just really impressed that he's got range in his voice acting, and I'm impressed by him. Yeah, man. Really good.
Two Quaids diverge in a wood.
Yeah, man. That's what they say.
That's how that poem goes, right?
I took the one less transporter duplicated.
Damn you, Robert Frost. Yeah, I really like this episode though, for the most part. We do have an email from Stu.
We'll go quickly. Let's do it.
Stu Little says your rebuttal is accurate, but nonsense. Hey, wow, Dave, that Scottish accent makes you sound like an extra from the TNG Sub Rosa. That's pretty good. Also, I know you're trying to hurt me with that impression. I'm not, but the fact you pronounced Glasgow right the first time, so it rhymes with show and not cow, strengthens my claim you have a Scottish alter. Not entirely, though, because you still exhibit that dumbass American misconception that Scotland and Great Britain are separate countries. How you doing? Also, to clarify, I wasn't insulting you by saying you have a 5th grade reading level when reading my emails. I was referencing something you yourself said the week before, but I don't remember what I said. But with me taking up so much of your mind.
Yeah, it's true. With him in there, you're probably dumping more information than you would like.
Yeah. Stu says, but with me taking up so much of your mind, it's understandable you would forget some things. It's going to take time for you to accept this, and I'll point out I have been respectful in the mind share. I didn't abuse this position to get Breaking Bond back on track, for instance. Where you left off was at such an interesting juncture, too. You would have next done Connery's final unofficial movie, Moore's final movie with Christopher Walken as the villain to boot. then both of Timothy Dalton's entries, including the one which features an appearance by the first choice for Kelvin Khan, Benicio del Toro, and then on to Pierce Brosnan's debut with my favorite Bond girl, TNG guest star Famke Janssen as Zinnia on a top. Do you really want to miss out on all that? Do you want Octopussy to be the note that the show goes out on? No, Stu, I don't. But my wife doesn't always want to watch it when I want to watch it. We have to be in sync, man.
Yes.
Anyway, on to...
Your Bond cycles need to sync up.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, on to reviews, starting with the Lower Decks season finale. Good, but not great. Come on! Felt like an abrupt ending both to stuff started last week and the Rutherford conspiracy plot. It did kind of feel abrupt to that.
Yeah,
Finding out Buenamigo was the shadowy officer from Rutherford's memory felt a bit anticlimactic, though I will note that I went back to that episode, and while it was altered a little, you could tell it's the same voice actor in the original flashback, so points for consistency and playing relatively fair with the audience. The contest with the Alito was a little hard to be invested in, because I'm pretty sure it was obvious to everyone the major flaw with the ship doing second missions from the jump. Never mind not scanning dust for life forms properly, I thought it was a bigger deal that we've seen these missions need an in-person diplomatic approach sometimes. It's not just about deliveries and maintenance. They should fit their manned ships with the offensive and defensive capabilities of the Texas class, as that one ship alone dished out and took a significantly larger beating. Do you think that's just because the ship doesn't have to worry about life support and other utilities for a real crew and can channel greater power to shields and use more space for armaments? Possibly.
Yeah, that, or it could be like
headcanon.
It could be things like, he puts it well, like life support's a good way to put it, but also like, let's say a certain weapon causes radiation or causes this or that, and you need excess shielding, and it requires all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of things you could think if like you didn't have to worry about people, you could make a ship just more good at the one thing it does, which is apparently transporting fully fabricated like buildings, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah.
And fighting,
Yeah. Stu says, how exactly does Picard fund rogue treasure hunting operations when there's no money in the Federation? Does Chateau Picard generate some income that he's putting into that while still a serving admiral? This was a reminder to me that the Romulan supernova hasn't happened yet in Lower Decks. Mariner not having an on-screen reconciliation with Jin kind of solidifies that character is not a serious long-term love interest to me. Shaxx getting to eject the warp core finally was a good joke. I did enjoy that quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Does he really suggest it that much? Yes. If so, I demand someone make a supercut. You're being a cantaloupe right now, and I need you to be a cantaloupe. Ugh. I liked that one, Stu.
I liked it because it was bad. Like, it is terrible. We fully agree with you, Stu, but that's the point. It's Miggly Mo.
That was the point.
Being Miggly Mo. Miggly Moo?
I don't know, but he's the worst character ever.
I know you're not a fan.
On purpose. On purpose, though.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, he is that kind of worse, but also I just really love... I think sometimes you don't like him, like you don't like his presence, which I do. I really like just Paul F. Tompkins and everything he does.
Yeah. He continues, post-credits with Badgie was alive. Still alive was nice, but it doesn't have the immediate oomph of previous finales endings to set up the following seasons. I think they kind of did a good job of setting up future seasons throughout this season, because I think they absolutely did. As for how Picard funds this, dude, like, man, it seems like everyone's got like some sort of off-world money situation going on.
Yeah, well, particularly the Picards. I mean, we know with Picard and Raffi, they touch on it in Picard that his family has a lot of wealth, which I don't know. We haven't really explored what that means in the Federation. Like, yeah, I don't know.
No, but why? Cisco's dad runs a restaurant. Is he not getting paid for that? Like, I assume they're giving him credits or something. There is some sort of currency in the Federation.
Well, according to, canon. Like when I was going to say, according to the actual character, according to, like Picard in First Contact, like they don't do it for money anymore. They do it for the status. And you can imagine someone running a restaurant for that reason, if it's something that you're really passionate about. But it's also like, I can't imagine someone washing the dishes though, but I guess if you have enough,
right. I mean, he would need a full-time dishwasher, not just and a full-time potato peeler, not just, every once in a while, every 10 years when his son has a breakdown, he goes and cuts a potato.
Unless I'm assuming there's a lot of machinery that does that kind of stuff these days. So maybe one good chef can run a whole kitchen pretty easily.
Not at Cisco's.
Yeah, it's not at Cisco's.
They do everything by hand. No, I don't know. I don't know how the money works. Clearly there are businesses of some sort and they have reference credits and stuff. It's just not the driving force.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Well, take that as you will, Stewie. Stu has more, but it's about Prodigy, which we haven't talked about yet, and I'll pop back to this email at the end of our Prodigy review.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah. Be a cantaloupe, not a cantaloupe.
Right.
With the
I prefer honeydew.
Be a honeydew, not a honey don't.
Be a watermelon, not a water felon.
I was going to say a wontermelon.
A wontermelon. A wonter felon.
Now I just want more melons to try this on.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we're done.
I know it's dumb, but I was going to say, be a grape, not a fuck that.
It doesn't even make sense. I can see a couple of reasons you wouldn't want to try to rework the word grape in any way.
How about don't be a grape, be a great.
I can't say the joke I want to say. All right, let's go.
Do it.
Be a graper, man. Not a grapist.
That's great.
Doesn't mean anything, but it's terrible.
No, it sounds
awful. Means nothing. All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here.
How about be a strawberry, not a rawberry?
Pretty good. You know what's funny?
Apologize.
I feel like I'm pretty good at this game, except I can't think of fruits. Chill untrue.
Be a banana, not a banana.
Pretty good. Be a banana, but not a banana.
Banana visitor? Come back, Kira.
Yes. She did.
I want more, though. Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.